The next thing I'm going to talk about is the representation in Smash Ultimate. The representation is interesting. While all franchises, you want them to be represented a lot, right? Well, no, because some franchises just don't have a lot to work with and or don't deserve to have that much to work with, if you know what I mean. Like, take Duck Hunt, for example. Duck Hunt is a super small, like, one game from the NES. Even though it's super popular from the NES, it's one game, so it shouldn't have more than one stage, it shouldn't have more than one character playable. You get the picture. So, I'm going to talk about the good and bad representations for franchises in Smash. Let's start off with the good ones. So, good ones would be, well, okay, I'll put Mario and Zelda aside for now because, well, I'll talk about it later. Let's take Kirby, for example. Kirby is a really good represented franchise because it represents a lot of the games throughout the entire franchise's history. Because they have a decent amount of Kirby stages ranging from many different Kirby games. They have 3 characters in the game, Kirby, Meta Knight, and King Dedede, which is a good variety of the main character and then 2 villains. Pretty decent selection, and then a wide variety of spirits, blah blah blah. That's good representation. Another good represented franchise would be Pokémon. And the reason I say that is because there's 8 Pokemon characters playable in Smash Ultimate, which makes it literally tied for second place with the most playable fighters in any franchise in Smash history. And there's 7 Pokemon stages, which puts it up there with having a lot of stages compared to other franchises. Like, some literally only have 1 stage. So 7 is a lot. And it's Pokemon. I mean, it's Pokemon, for crying out loud. It makes sense to have a lot of representation. It's Pokemon. I mean, it's literally one of the biggest media franchises in not just video game but pop culture history. It has its anime, it has its video games, it has its card games, even has movies. I mean, this franchise is big enough to compete with Marvel, DC, Mickey Mouse, Looney Tunes, Minecraft, like the biggest media franchises in media history. It's just up there. So that is good representation. And now let me talk about a third party good representation. I'm not going to talk about third-party franchises with representation as much because you have to add in the factor of getting the contract with this third-party company. So obviously there's going to be a couple like rules and regulations that Nintendo has to follow because the company basically is still telling them, we own this character. We basically get to tell you how you get to use this character and or IP. So I'm not going to talk about third-party franchises that much, but I will talk about Final Fantasy because I have to acknowledge that while Final Fantasy is not represented good at all as a whole because 7 is literally the only game represented for the most part. Final Fantasy VII specifically, I will say they did a phenomenal job representing it in Smash Ultimate. It's interesting because before they added Sephiroth as DLC, Final Fantasy VII used to be one of the worst represented third-party franchises in all of Smash because it was literally just Cloud, his 2 fighter spirits, which was just 2 different versions of Cloud, 1 stage, and 2 music tracks. That's literally it. Whereas when they added Sephiroth, they added obviously the other fighter spirit of Sephiroth, and then they added a bunch of other Final Fantasy VII characters as spirits. They added a couple Mii outfits for the Mii Brawler, the Mii Gunner, and the Mii Sword Fighter, and then they added another stage, and they actually added a bunch more music, including some Smash remixes. So they fixed the representation so much that it instantly became one of, if not the best represented third-party franchise in all of Smash, because it is one of only 3 third-party franchises that has more than 1 character playable, and the only other 2 would be Castlevania and Street Fighter, and therefore, because Street Fighter only has Ryu and Ken, and Castlevania only has Simon Belmont and Richter Belmont, Final Fantasy gets Cloud and Sephiroth, so therefore, Sephiroth is legitimately one of the only playable third-party villains in Smash, unless you want to count Kazuya Mishima from Tekken. It gets iffy with Tekken because of how Kazuya is sometimes the main character, and then he's the main villain, blah blah blah. Okay, it's a complicated franchise, whatever. So, not counting Tekken, Sephiroth is quite literally the only true villain-esque character that's not Nintendo on the roster. Final Fantasy VII specifically, phenomenal job on Nintendo's side and Sakurai's side. Moving on to bad representation. This is where things are going to start coming off as me just being a nitpicky a-hole. But once I dive into it, you'll understand my complaints. I mentioned earlier about how I'm not happy with Star Fox stages in Smash, and it's not just the stages for Star Fox. The whole franchise is just represented so poorly, it kind of hurts, honestly, as a Star Fox fan. I know the franchise franchise's history. I know which games are more popular than others. I know which games bombed so badly and which ones are literally praised as some of the greatest games in the series, yada yada yada. But like the representation of Star Fox is mind-boggling for how bad it is. I mean, I don't even understand how this was even passed in the game. So remember earlier when I was talking about how the stages are like where they're clearly based off Star Fox 64, but they don't have the Star Fox 64 logo in the corner. Instead they just say Star Fox. Well, it's the complete other way around where they're trying to take the characters and their color swaps. See, wasn't really talking about color swaps earlier because I'm going to talk about that later in the video, but the main default outfit for pretty much all three of them, well, actually no, come to think of it, Falco is actually pretty much ripped straight from Star Fox Zero. Fox and Wolf are both completely, like, their design in Ultimate is completely made up for the most part, where it's only loosely resembling what they dub as being from Star Fox Zero, even though it's not. I literally will show you a PNG image of the Star Fox Zero version of Fox and then put it next to the Smash Ultimate version of Fox, and you can very obviously tell that's not the same Fox. And the sad part is that, to put it in perspective, this version of Fox does not exist at all in the entirety of Star Fox. It literally is Smash Original 100%, because it's like he's wearing the jacket from Star Fox Zero, he still has the head design from Star Fox Command, and then he has these made-up boots that are literally not from any Star Fox game. I know this sounds super nitpicky, but like, it's irritating, okay? I mean, ugh. And the reason why it doesn't make sense is, like, why do they just, like, make stuff up for franchises like Star Fox when they do it such a phenomenal job of taking characters straight out of the game they're from and make them look exactly like the character? I mean, how hard would it have been if they just plopped Fox straight out of Star Fox Assault and put him in Brawl? That's all I'm asking for. Because back in Melee, they just basically made a more HD version of Star Fox 64 Fox because that was really the newest Star Fox game at the time. So that's all that made sense at the time. But for some reason, even though over the course of 7 years, 3 Star Fox games had been released in between Melee and Brawl. So those would include Star Fox Adventures, Star Fox Assault, and Star Fox Command. Now, for some reason, instead of just going all out with the Star Fox Command design, they felt it necessary to, like, make up this new design that doesn't exist. I don't know why they did that. I mean, I don't even know why they went out with even representing Command at all. Because at that point in time, Brawl came out around 2 years after Star Fox Command came out. And Command is legitimately ranked as the second worst game in the entire series. So representing it at all almost feels not necessary because no one's gonna care. And I'm not gonna go into why it's ranked as one of the second worst games in the series because, like, I don't want to. And I will honestly just do that in a different video, like if I make a Star Fox retrospective or something. But I don't know why they couldn't just, like, because Star Fox Assault is kind of looked over because of the fact that it just sold kind of mediocrely. But that was the game right before Command, so I feel like that should have been the obvious choice, especially since the secret Star Fox conversations that you can literally have on the stage are all loosely based off Star Fox Assault. So it's weird that they just didn't go all out with the Star Fox Assault. And like I mentioned it earlier with the Star Fox Assault stage, which was literally based on the one game that wasn't 64, and then they got rid of it. So all 3 stages are all from Star Fox 64. Well, one's a 64 stage that was updated to Star Fox Zero, which Star Fox Zero is the worst selling game in the whole entire franchise. To put things in retrospective, Star Fox Zero did way worse than Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, and everyone knows that game. Oh, that game, dude. Oh my gosh, no one wants to talk about that game. Those graphics, whatever. But Star Fox Zero, I get it. It was the newest game in the series, and they had nothing else to work with, so I get representing it. But, like, the fact that they don't represent Star Fox Adventures, like, really at all, like, I get it, okay? Star Fox Adventures is a little bit of a cringy game, but that's only because it was made by, honestly, a little bit of a cringy video game developer. I mean, Rare has not exactly made some 100% wholesome games. I mean, let's be honest. So, its representation shouldn't be tarnished just because of that. The fact that Star Fox Adventures is, like, literally probably one of the least represented games that should be represented in Smash is crazy. I mean, all it has is Crystal as an assist trophy, literally 2 spirits, one of which is also Crystal, coincidentally enough, and then that's it. Like, no stage, no music, no color swaps. It's like they're trying to pretend this game doesn't exist. Oh, okay, Nintendo, I see what you're doing there. And don't get me wrong, I don't love Star Fox Adventures. It's honestly a mediocre game in my opinion. Like, if I were to rank it on a tier list, I think I'd give it like a C+, maybe a solid B, maybe. Because I love Star Fox Assault. That game is legitimately one of my all-time favorite games ever made. Star Fox Adventures, on the other hand, it's just but like that doesn't mean you shouldn't represent it. I feel like it should have gotten Krazoa Palace as a stage. It should have gotten a decent selection of music, and it should have gotten a little more spirits. And it's not just that. I mean, even the roster of characters for Star Fox is kind of silly, because like Fox and Falco makes sense. Adding all four of them would be cool, but it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense because of the fact that there's not a whole lot of stuff to work with moveset wise, because Star Fox is heavily based on the R-Wing on-rail shooter game aspect of it, so you don't really have much to work with. Unless you go the Star Fox Assault route, where Nintendo literally just pretended that stuff didn't exist. I mean, could you imagine if they gave Fox the assault rifle, or like the machine gun, or the Gatling gun, or even flipping grenades from Star Fox Assault? Can you imagine how flipping badass that would have been? I mean, come on. And it would have made his moveset more interesting than whatever this made-up stuff is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love his moveset, but like, it's made up. It's not... half of his moveset's completely made up, and some of it is just filler in making sense for the character, like his blaster gun. Like, his whole moveset just is just made up, therefore he's like a whole new character. There's Star Fox, Fox McCloud, and then there's Super Smash Bros. Fox McCloud. And that's just the moveset aspect of it. The actual fighters, what I was referring to just a little bit ago. We have Fox, Falco, and Wolf. Now, here's an interesting short little history. Wolf was never supposed to be included in Smash Brawl. They added him because they were rushing the game out towards the end of its development. That's why Wolf, Toon Link, and Jigglypuff were not even in the Subspace Emissary storyline. They were literally shoehorned in as like these bonus characters to get, and it's kind of obvious to tell that they were rushed because Jigglypuff was just bringing back a character that was already in a previous game. Super easy to make. Toon Link is basically a copy and paste of Young Link, so he basically has the exact same moveset. You're seeing a repetition here. And then Wolf, they just added him in as a slower, more powerful version of Fox. I don't like playing as Wolf. Honestly, his moveset kind of sucks in my opinion. And it's because of that. I mean, they have 3 Star Fox characters in Smash, and they all have the exact same moveset practically. I don't even understand why they won't consider Falco as an Echo Fighter over Fox. They're literally almost the exact same character. It's like Ryu and Ken. They have almost the same moveset, but it's slightly tweaked to where they're different characters. Ryu and Ken, Echo Fighters. Falco and Fox, nope. What? And where I was getting with this, Wolf was never intended to be in Brawl. It was originally supposed to be Crystal, and honestly, I feel like it would have been a little more interesting because maybe she would have had more moveset potential than just copy and pasting Fox's moveset. She could have got her staff, and maybe she could have incorporated the Star Fox Assault artillery, so that way they could still keep Fox's old moveset, but still introducing the Star Fox Assault artillery in there. But no, they never did. They scrapped Crystal with Wolf, and then immediately kicked Wolf out in Smash 4. Like, are you kidding me? And then they brought him back in Ultimate, and then that's it. Like, I don't know. Star Fox is a tricky franchise, so after this whole rant, Star Fox gets like a D tier for representation. Maybe a solid C minus, but like the representation is just bad, and that's coming from a hardcore Star Fox fan. So, Nintendo, do better. Do better. Next on this rant for bad representation would be Fire Emblem, except this is for the complete opposite reason than you're thinking. Fire Emblem, what do you mean? It has 8 playable characters, 4 stages, tons of spirits, tons of assist trophies. Okay, maybe only like 2 assist trophies, but like, that's what I'm getting at. Fire Emblem is such a niche franchise, it's just like Star Fox, or at least it's like what Star Fox used to be. They're both niche franchises. And what I mean by that is like they're popular enough to be acknowledged and to be talked about as like franchises that are like put their spot on video game history, but not to the point where like you can ask some random schmuck off the street, have you heard of Fire Emblem? And they're going to be like, oh yes, I have. Like if you ask a 40-year-old man, have you played Fire Emblem? He's probably going to say no, because like, even I had never heard of Fire Emblem before I started playing Smash. Whereas if you were to ask someone younger, like a 15-year-old, the person would probably say yes. It's just the times. That's what I mean. Like, so Fire Emblem, the only reason it's quote-unquote represented badly is because it's represented too much. Like, it's almost so obvious that Sakurai is obsessed with the franchise, which is kind of funny because it's not even his franchise. He's the creator of flipping Kirby, so it's kind of funny that he's like more obsessed with putting Fire Emblem characters in Smash and not Kirby characters, because I feel like it would have made more sense if there was like 8 Kirby characters, a ridiculous amount of Kirby stages, a ridiculous amount of Kirby everything, because then it'd just be like, oh, he's just playing favorites. Here, it's kind of funny. It is. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate that Fire Emblem's represented. It's just the fact that it's represented so much, and that every single character is almost like the exact same character, just slightly tweaked. I mean, you have Marth, you have Girl Marth, you have Strong Slow Marth, you have Marth 2, and then you have Marth 2 but clone, and it's just like, what? I mean, Robin, Corrin, and Byleth are quite literally the only 3 who are not just another variation of Marth. Byleth, even though so many people were complaining over Byleth's inclusion, it's like, yes, Byleth being the 8th Fire Emblem character, yes, I said 8th. Remember I said Pokemon has 8 characters? That's basically saying Fire Emblem deserves the same amount of playable characters as Pokemon. Are you kidding me right now? Comparing Fire Emblem to Pokemon? The only other franchise in Smash Ultimate that deserves the amount of recognition as Pokemon is probably Mario. I think that's pretty much it. And maybe Sonic, but Sonic gets disqualified because it's not Nintendo. But anyway, moving on. So after they added Byleth, people were complaining about like, oh, it's another Fire Emblem character, and it's like, Byleth is actually a pretty solid character. He's pretty cool. I mean, he has this pretty decent moveset that's different from the other Fire Emblem characters. It's just the only problem is that he is the 8th Fire Emblem character. Like, if there was only Marth, Rom, and maybe Corrin, and then they just added Byleth, I don't think anyone would really care, because that's why this whole bad representation of Fire Emblem, and you've just the cliche memes I see on the internet about people just completely erasing Fire Emblem from the game. It's like, no, I'm fine with Fire Emblem in the game. It's just, it's represented too much, and I think it's something that just, I hope they fix in the next game. I don't know. It's like, because now you're just gonna have to take characters away, and everyone hates it when that happens. Let's be honest. Some of these characters really, to put it in perspective, the game that Roy is originally from is literally not even that popular at all. They literally added Roy in the game before his game even came out. I mean, are you kidding me right now? How does that make any sense to add a character in from a game that hasn't even come out yet, when the whole purpose of Smash is to be celebrating the greatest video games of all time for Nintendo? Now, that makes no sense. So, like, that's what I'm talking about. So, Fire Emblem, in the sense of representing the franchise by itself, they did a phenomenal job. They knocked it out of the ballpark. This franchise is represented insane. It's insane. However, it's bad because it doesn't make sense compared to the other franchises in the game. So, moving on. And now we come to the final bad and probably most notoriously bad represented franchise in Smash history, which is not even Nintendo. And I mentioned it earlier, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic has been in it since Brawl, and by process of elimination, because Solid Snake was kicked out in Smash 4, Sonic is the only third-party character to be in 3, technically 4 Smash Bros. Games. So you think he should have the best representation for third-party franchises, right? No. Absolutely not. He has the worst representation for any third-party franchise. And honestly, it's probably because Nintendo still has a thing against Sega. They've had a feud since the 90s. Not even, since the 80s. I mean, it's Universal versus Disney. It's McDonald's versus Burger King. It's Lego versus Mega Bloks. It's Marvel versus DC. It's one of the most famous feuds in pop culture history. So I guess it makes sense in the way that they're basically trashing on Sega, but like at that point, why get the contract with Sega? Just to prove that you're buddy-buddy with your enemies, but at the same time, you're still enemies? Think about it. Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Literally one of the biggest media franchises of all time. Up there with Pokemon, for example. And comparing it with Pokemon is quite sad. I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog literally only has one playable character, and that is Sonic. 2 stages, one of which is from literally one of the most randomest games they could have ever picked, and it was only added just to promote the game on the Wii U. Kind of pathetic. And a decent amount of music selection. I am kind of glad they got some of that Crush 40 hard rock music in there. That is something I wasn't exactly expecting they'd add. I'm glad they have it in there, but they did the bare minimum with the music. Like, they don't even have I Am All of Me from Shadow the Hedgehog. Like, are you guys kidding me right now? That's literally one of the most famous Sonic themes of all time. How is that not in Smash Ultimate? So the music, at least they did the bare minimum and didn't just do below the bare minimum. The stage representation's just bad. I mean, why Windy Hill Zone? Why am I even looking at this stage? Really? It's not something from Sonic Adventure 2 or something from like Sonic and the Secret Rings or Sonic and the Black Knight, or heck, even Sonic Forces would have made more sense than this. Like, really? And it's not just that either. I mean, the spirits, they also did the bare minimum. They only added like all the main characters from every game. They didn't end up really bothering adding like any really side obscure characters, because like they've added some pretty obscure characters as spirits before. It's kind of funny that they have like no side obscure Sonic characters, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's rough. How in the world do we only have Sonic in Smash as just Sonic? Like, how did 3 other third-party franchises beat Sonic the Hedgehog? How did Castlevania be the first one to get 2 characters and it was just introduced in Ultimate? Sonic the Hedgehog should have been the first third-party franchise to get 2 playable characters. I mean, come on, where is Tails? Where is Dr. Eggman? How in the world do we have Sephiroth before Eggman? Are you kidding me? Eggman is up there with Bowser. Like, everybody should know this dude. Like, this is literally one of the most famous bad guys in video game history. I mean, come on. I know people keep begging for Shadow, but that's just gonna bring up the same issue that I mentioned earlier with Star Fox. It's just gonna be a big ol' Echo Fighter clone character of Sonic, and it's like, that should not be the second character they add, especially for the sense that, like, that's basically the same thing if Sega were to have their own Smash Bros, and then they add Mario, and the next character they add is Wario. Like, it doesn't make sense. The next character from Sonic should be either Tails or Eggman. End of story. And now I saved Mario and Zelda for last because they are both the only 2 franchises that are both phenomenally excellent, great, awesome representation, but also terrible representation at the same time. And that's because while they both represent pretty much the entire franchise's history, and yes, that's talking about like over 100 plus Mario games and over 30 Zelda games, that's a lot. That is a lot of representation just by the amount of games represented. Now, this is where things get interesting. So with Mario, let me dive in deeper. I don't want to talk about the music. The music is represented just great. Okay, except one thing. Where is Buoy Base Galaxy? Where is Buoy Base Galaxy, guys? Where is the Mario Galaxy Buoy Base Galaxy theme? This is literally the best Mario theme ever made. Why is it not in the game? Okay, other than that, the music is phenomenal for Mario. The stages could use some work, honestly, because like some of them are just the exact same thing again. And what I mean by that is like World 1-1 from various different Mario games. Like, some of these stages, they're alright, just some of them are pretty boring, and honestly some of them just are not necessary. And then the roster. How in the world did we get Piranha Plant before Toad? Notice how I said Toad and not Waluigi. I am totally fine if Waluigi makes it in. If he doesn't, whatever. I feel like he should be in there, because honestly for me, when I started playing Smash and I found out Wario made it in, I'm like, ooh, where's Waluigi? Because I never knew there was like a Wario franchise. I only knew Wario as like this evil, weird, twisted version of Mario, and then they had Waluigi in there with him, so it was like this evil, twisted version of Luigi, so it just makes sense that they'd be together. I always saw Wario and Waluigi as like this duo, just like Mario and Luigi. So when they only added Wario and not Waluigi, for me when I was younger, it just came off as a little weird to me. Now that I found out that Waluigi just doesn't have his own series and Wario does, I guess it kind of does make sense that they added Wario, not Waluigi. But in my younger self, it just came off as a little weird. And because of the memes of Waluigi not being in Smash, and like the people keep begging for him to be in the game, and then just for Sakurai to add in the Piranha Plant, like, are you kidding me right now? That is so obviously a middle finger to the Waluigi fans. It's not even funny. It's just mean at that point. Like, really, literally any, like, so I think the Goomba would have been a better choice than that. I mean, you gotta be kidding me right now. The Piranha Plant, the Piranha Plant, let me say that again, the Piranha Plant. Okay, I'll stop. I gotta move on, because, like, you can tell where this is going. Zelda's not as bad. There's really no music that I would say is arguably missing. Breath of the Wild is really the only problem with, like, music and stage-wise. I mentioned earlier with the stage, so I don't have to talk about it. But the music, they kind of skimped out on Breath of the Wild. I mean, to be fair, Breath of the Wild doesn't even really have that much music to choose from. But, like, the Lost Woods theme would have been really nice. And, like, maybe all the other Champions themes. So, and I know that's just a little nitpicky, so that's all. The main issue with Zelda is the roster of characters. 3 Links, 2 Zeldas, and a Ganondorf and a pear tree. Of Zelda's mass amount of history. Zelda's mass amount of characters. Zelda's mass amount of possibility. And you pick 3 Links, 2 Zeldas, and Ganondorf. Okay, Nintendo. There's a reason why they did that, because the problem with The Legend of Zelda is it's similar like Final Fantasy, where like every game is different, except they have a different story with different plot or whatever. Just the only difference is that they always use Zelda, Link, and some form of Ganondorf, or whatever he's called, which is an issue, because that means a lot of the side characters sometimes don't return. So some of these characters who are legitimately main characters are only main characters in one game. So how can they choose just one character who's from one Zelda game? So you're going to have the Ocarina of Time fans begging for like the various amount of, what were they called, champions from Ocarina of Time. You're going to have the Wind Waker fans begging for Tetra. You're going to have the Twilight Princess fans begging for Midna. You're going to have the Skyward Sword fans begging for either Girahim or, oh my gosh, the memes might bring Groose into Smash. Or the Breath of the Wild fans who want the champions in there. Which I kind of want the champions, honestly, because I feel like, because Breath of the Wild is the best-selling Zelda game by a mile, I feel like it makes sense for Breath of the Wild to get characters in there, because why not? Especially since they have moveset potential from Hyrule Warriors. So it begs that question, because Zelda has such a split fan base between like 6 different games, you can't really choose like one character, because at that point Zelda's gonna have like 12 characters in Smash if you appease everybody. And that's the problem with Smash Ultimate. You can't make everybody happy. Literally every time someone's added to the game, someone's just going to throw a temper tantrum on the internet because their favorite character didn't make it in the game. That's just how it is. I just trashed on the fan base earlier. This is literally the Smash Bros. Community. Sorry, that's just the way it is. The Zelda representation, dude. It's tricky, okay? So, representation for Smash. I'm going to give it a ranking. Let's see here. Some really good representation, some really bad representation. Let's meet in the middle, call it a good, solid B, right? Would you say that's a B? I'd say that's a B. Representation is a solid B. Okay, moving on.